We'll get to our panel to pick apart the political issues of the week. We're joined by Liberal Senator for South Australia, Alex Antic, and former Liberal MP Nicolle Flint. Nicolle, Alex, welcome to the show. Let's start with something Peter Credlin, speaking of Peter, wrote in The Australian yesterday. She argued why the last thing the Liberal Party ought to be doing is moving further to the left to pick up teal votes, like Liberals Malcolm Turnbull, Andrew Bragg, Bridget Archer and others have been arguing. She cited several figures from an ANU study that makes her point very clear. She said less than 1 in 5 teal voters previously voted for the coalition. I must say that surprised me, and she concluded climate policy might have hurt them in the richer seats but turned teal, but climate and the environment were not the most important election issues last time. Even taken together, climate and the environment, number one for only 17% of the audience. Senator, to you first. Peter's pretty right, isn't she?
Yeah, look, Steve, she's 100% right. I mean, we've been saying this since the last election cycle, and I think it applied here at state level in South Australia as much as it did at federal level. You only have to look back at the 2019 election when the message was pitched squarely at the everyday Australians, the quiet Australians and the forgotten people, as Menzies said, to know how successful that campaign was. And even if you translate that forward into the last election, the MPs that did really, really well were those that were pitching that message of economic conservatism and even being prepared to fight the so-called culture wars, which the left love to pillory us, but they started it. And you see that in places like Herbert, where Phil Thompson had a 9.9% swing to him simply because he flew the fag for real Liberal values. Many more examples of that all over the country. Peter's 100% correct.
Nicolle, you'd know this as well as anyone else. You win in the middle, don't you?
Yes, Steve, you absolutely do. And I note the wise words of former Prime Minister Tony Abbott, who said, Labor light, Liberals lose. The Liberal Party has to stay true to our principles, and we have to focus on our local community and the issues that matter to them most. And quite frankly, especially right now, cost of living, power prices, people being able to pay their mortgages or pay their rent are the issues that Australians are really concerned about. And I'm very impressed with the job that Peter Dutton is doing from opposition. And he has been focusing rightly on big issues that matter to the electorate, like nuclear power and how we're going to achieve net zero in a responsible manner, but also opposing the voice, Steve. This is all Labor seem to be talking about at the moment when we've got all of these very serious cost of living issues going on out there in the community.
Well, Nicolle, I've got to say, no one pulls me aside when I'm out in public and says, listen, I want to have a chat to you about the voice. I'd like to have a chat to you about my gas bill or my electricity bill, or how come my grandmother can't keep her heater on in the winter because she can't afford the power bills. I mean, cost of living is number 1, 2 and 3 issue in the country, isn't it?
Yep, it absolutely is, Steve. And it's terrifying and it's deeply concerning that we have vulnerable Australians, especially our senior Australians, who are from a very frugal generation, who are opting not to turn their heaters on in what is a very, very cold winter this year. It's putting people at risk. And this is precisely the issue that Labor should be focusing on rather than their doomed voice campaign.
Alex, in South Australia, my old state, I was surprised to read this week that a court case has gone against the idea of having a nuclear waste dump near Kimba because of objections from Indigenous community there. I mean, of all the places in the world where you could safely erect a nuclear waste dump, South Australia would have to be at the top of the list, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, you would think so. I mean, we're geologically very stable. We've got the tyranny of distance, which in this case is a good thing. And we had a willing community in Kimba, largely, I think, that wanted this there and wanted the economic benefits that flowed from it. I mean, the problem we're going to face here is that the ANSTO site at Lucas Heights now is going to run out of space for this material by about 2028, they report. And let's be clear about this. We're not talking about drums full of green, oozing, toxic waste like you see in The Simpsons. That's the message that's been kind of used by the left, I suppose, to scare the locals. But in reality, we're dealing with very, very low-level medical waste, the sorts of things you see, like gloves and gowns and those sorts of things, the sort of stuff that people need, by the way, for nuclear medicine. And the government now is going to have to go back to the drawing board and find a way, hopefully hopefully we see a solution out of this, because there is a real world need for this facility.